Good morning, Long Island. Welcome to CMM Live, where we are helping Long Island thrive. My name is Joe Campolo. I'm your host this beautiful Tuesday morning, May 15th. It's a gorgeous day outside, and today we're going to do a really important show for Long Island, and that is we're going to start talking about the impact of the not-for-profit sector here on Long Island. I mean, as of today, just so our viewers know, there are between 5,000 and 6,000 not-for-profits on Long Island. It affects billions and billions of dollars of the Long Island economy. So we are very lucky to have really two preeminent not-for-profit leaders join us this morning. Our first guest is John Miller. John is the CEO of the Guide Dog Foundation in Smithtown. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. John and I've served on some of John's boards. We met through the HIA when you were a recipient of the Business Achievement Award for your work. And I have to tell you folks that anybody who knows John knows what a tremendous organizational leader he is. He gives such impact to the organizations he's part of. And so John, welcome and good morning.
Well, thank you.
You
Glad
know,
to be here.
my first question to you is a question you and I have had discussions on over cocktails, and that is, you're such a talented guy, you're such a talented leader. You know, why the not-for-profit sector? You know, what drove you there, and what do you find there?
Well, I can tell you, having worked with folks like you, Joe, on our board, and the impact in the organizations that I've been lucky to be part of. I go back to really my first real nonprofit experience, which was at the Food Bank for New York City, and if we didn't do a good job, people didn't eat. So we had a lot of pressure on us to raise the funds that were needed to get the food and get food donations, but also do the distribution end of that. And you saw the impact, and people were motivated to do a good job because the stakes were very high. And I've been fortunate in my career. I started in local government in the town of Babylon here on Long Island, and from there through several stops with the food bank and ultimately the Red Cross, who I worked with very closely as chief of staff of the food bank. Superstorm Sandy, when that hit Long Island, was really just an impactful, high volume, high impact, but high need event, meaning that we had to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for almost 6.5, 7 months to provide housing, shelter, medication, mental health needs for people who were in their worst times. And really, to answer your question, it's about providing that impact and making sure that people have what they need. And it's really not about income disparity or whatever issues may be out there. Now with the Guide Dog Foundation and America's VetDogs, we work very closely with people who are vision impaired, veterans who've served and seen some of the most gruesome things you could imagine, and need a little support, to make their lives, a little more whole and get through their day. So it's all about the impact.
Yeah, so how do businesses, so one of the things I love about Long Island is we're a very philanthropic community. People realize that in order to get, you have to give, and you have to give back to the community, right? But with so many not-for-profits that are out there, right? How does the business community ascertain the ones that are making an impact, and the ones that just aren't, the ones that are started? A lot of times, a lot of criticism I hear is, not-for-profits will be started just to create a salary for a CEO somewhere, So help the business community understand when looking at them, sure, what they should be looking for.
Yeah, there are two major things I would say to that. Number one is the leadership. Do they have a reputable leader who can articulate a vision and really work, to demonstrate impact? Number two is there are rating agencies out there. So the Better Business Bureau, Charity Navigator, GuideStar, are all things or all resources for the business community to look at. And I found with my experience, particularly here on Long Island, it's about having relationships and making sure that corporate engagement and volunteer opportunities exist for employees and volunteer groups, so that they could take really hold and get their hands dirty and work with us in the trenches to get the services we get out there to the field.
Yeah, and I have to tell you folks that leadership is critical when you're looking at not-for-profits. As I mentioned, I've served on several of John's boards, the American Red Cross here on Long Island, and the Tourette Association of America, which was a national board, and the leadership was critical. The turnaround that you were able to accomplish at Tourette was amazing. So what are you hoping to accomplish now at the Guide Dog Foundation and America's VetDogs? What are you hoping to accomplish there?
We want to impact as many people across the country and around the world that need our services. We have a 10-acre campus based here in Smithtown. We have dogs being raised in homes all across the country. We're providing great service out there, but we're not able to meet all of the need. We have a wait list that is there. We need to continue to grow the organization so we could get through our wait list and even deliver more services to the veterans and to the vision impaired community. We have a very, very top-notch program. We're duly accredited throughout the world. We're one of the first in the country to be duly accredited. We have a campus on Smithtown where we bring individuals from really around the world to get paired with their dogs, whether it's on the guide dog side or the vet dog side. And the dogs really are trained to provide custom type services for the particular needs of whether it be the person who's vision impaired or the veteran who's in need. And it's about being able to make a bigger impact.
So the Guide Dog Foundation is very well known, and we're going to talk a little bit about that more. But America VetDogs, that was established like in '03, right?
Right.
And so tell us why was there a need for a separate organization, and what's sort of the mission of that
Sure.
sister organization?
So the need really arose out of the war on terror, and we've the organization saw many people coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan and across the world, and had different types of needs. Large contingent of what we do at VetDogs is to serve the PTSD community. But not only the PTSD community, we have people on our board who have lost limbs, who are deaf, or had traumatic brain injuries with the service. And the numbers were so great that the organization decided to jump into this field with 2 feet. And really, we've become one of the national leaders in the service dog industry. Right now, we have that dual accreditation I talked about earlier, but also we have a signature partnership with NBC as well, where we're raising a guide dog right now live on the Today Show every day, as well as on the local NBC stations in Atlanta, Baltimore, Boston, and LA, really to drive awareness, to help raise money, and to highlight some of the good work that we're doing.
So the vet dogs, what sort of training do the dogs undertake, right? Because I mean, a good golden lab, a very loyal dog to begin with,
Sure.
What is the specific need and training that they do?
So it's very different, training a guide dog and a vet dog. So guide dogs are more traditional services that you see, and we out here on Long Island, we're on the railroad, we're in Patchogue, in the downtown areas, really training. Doing blindfold walks, to help the dogs get where they need to be. But on the vet dog side, it could be, the veteran, needs nightmare interruption, and the dogs are trained to either pull, the blanket, or to point and poke on the leg, to wake you up if it senses you're having a nightmare. They turn the lights on. They could retrieve, valuables. So if you left your cell phone, on a table, the dog is trained to retrieve that. They could retrieve something as little as a credit card up to something 5 pounds in weight. And depending on the actual needs, bracing for a service member who may have lost a limb and may have some trouble with balance, the dogs are taught to be a brace and to walk up and down stairs, and just getting up and down off a couch or a chair.
Right. So the lawyer in me says, some risk in making sure that you have the right dogs, making sure that you have the right candidates, making sure people aren't abusing the dogs. What's that process like? How do you select the dogs?
Sure.
And then how do you screen recipients?
Sure. So the dogs are all bred, in Smithtown, right on our campus, and we have a lot of science behind the breeding, to raise dogs with traits that we hope would be successful both on the guide dog and the vet dog side. Equally as important, is the vetting process, for both the organizations for candidates who are coming in. And it's not just, you could, the next dog who's up and ready and, the next veteran on the list. There's a real, very high touch matching process that we go through to ensure that the dog will have the best chance to succeed, based on the personality of the potential handler, and vice versa. And we do personality, typing, so to speak. And then when the dogs are ready, and we're ready to get the veterans or the vision impaired person into the facility, we work on a 2-week basis. They come to our campus, stay on the campus for a full 2 weeks, and we teach them and help them bond, whether it's through their training, through feeding them, through walking them, and all the process that undertaken in that 2 weeks.
So after the 2 weeks, then I guess the candidate goes home with the matched dog,
Right.
right? And then is there follow-up? Is there any sort
Yeah.
of
So we have, once you leave the campus, that's not it. We have, certain checkpoints, that we work with, to make sure, the dog's being taken care of from a medical standpoint, so that everybody's out in the field has to at least go to the veterinarian once a year. We provide certain amount of vaccination and food and equipment for the dogs. But there's a clear contract between the organization and the handler, and to make sure that that care happens. But more importantly, we're out there. We have different zones throughout the country that really our field reps work. If the dog and the handler of the team need to be retrained in something, so we do house visits. Once that 2 weeks is up, if it's necessary.
So the Guide Dog Foundation, that's been around a lot longer. I think my notes say 1946 it was established, but there's been a tremendous evolution over time, right? So talk about that evolution and talk about some of the challenges that you're facing to keep evolving in the future.
Sure. So the organization did start back in the late 40s, derived after World War II. There was a group of 5 people, I believe, who were initially the founders of the organization to help veterans who had lost their sight due to injuries from war. And that started out in Forest Hills, Queens, and then ultimately they bought this campus, which we now have, in Smithtown. And that started with one very small building and a mock-up of a city block to do the training for the guide dogs. If you were to go to our campus now, it's over 10 acres. We have a national administrative center, a dorm for our students, a training center, which at any point in time 80 to 100 dogs could be in training, a breeding center, and a full campus, scaped out for all the different potential landscapes that could be. And we're in a very important point, in our organization's history, because the demand is there, both on the guide dog side, but especially on the vet dog side. And going back to my earlier comments, we're really looking to make a much larger impact, nationally and internationally by being able to place more teams. And the only way we could do that is by raising awareness and raising money, so that we have the money to raise one of these dogs. It's very expensive. It's over $50,000, probably closer to $60,000 to $65,000 to get a dog through the full life cycle and get it placed out in the world. And it's a very expensive proposition because it's very high touch. And while we make the most of technology, there's a lot of human high touch elements to this organization and what we're doing.
Yeah, it's incredible. I didn't realize the costs associated with it. You think a dog and
Right.
you kind of move on, but that's really incredible, and it's incredible work, really truly incredible work. I mean, let's go to a little bit more of a macro conversation in terms of the not-for-profit sectors in general. Our firm represents a lot of folks who are rattling sabers with either the county or the state because of budgetary cuts, because of things that are going on. Where is that headed? Where is the not-for-profit sector as a whole headed, in your opinion?
Well, from my experience and working with you and other boards, it's very clear that you have to run these organizations like businesses. The bottom line is important, and you need leadership that understands how to manage a budget and balance that with service provision. And I think the organizations that will survive and thrive, as as your show here is talking about, are really those that have found that balance and understanding working the bottom line compared to first-class service provision. And you can't be everything to everybody, so you'll see less and less mission creep as we move forward. I think organizations that can collaborate and work together, that's really the future of the nonprofit industry.
Yeah, and I think collaboration is key. So we had Randy Dresner on when we were doing a show based on housing and food needs, and I was shocked that 1 in 10 Long Islanders go without food, and if Island Harvest and Long Island Cares and other great organizations didn't help provide it, they wouldn't. And she talked as well about the need for collaboration at your level with her and others. Like her. How can we help do that? How can we help form that? How can the business community help, support that?
Yeah, well, certainly, Randy is a friend, and we worked very closely together, particularly when I was with the Red Cross. But we knew each other from when I was in the food bank for New York City as well, and they do a great job, as does Paul over at the Long Island Cares. It's about convening, and you're creating the environment, the donor environment or the funding environment that requires us, to get together. I think naturally, the good organizations here on Long Island, the leaders have the proclivity to want to work together, but everybody is feeling bottom line pressures. And I think that, if funding, came in as such, where it was, requested, if not required, that would be certainly, something that would, shake the tree a little bit, and get a bigger group, starting to work together. I can tell you, since being at the Guide Dog and VetDogs, we are working with Long Island Cares. We're going to be doing a partnership with the New York Jets, where we're going to be placing a service dog, on Veterans Day or around Veterans Day, and they're going to be working with us to provide, the food and some other needs that the veteran may have, in their home. And that works. That type of model works for many reasons. Both the organizations are fulfilling their mission. We're working, in a high-profile way, to get awareness out. We're serving a need in the community, but also we're calling on each other to do what they do best. Long Island Cares does have a nice food provision, dog food or pet food provision. And it makes sense for an organization like ours to work with that. Also, we've been working with AHRC Suffolk. We've brought some puppies to their garden for the kids there to learn about dogs and how to handle them. And as we move forward, we've brought the Red Cross to the campus. And my hope is to really be a leader in that space and trying to drive collaboration. We have a big campus, with high-tech meeting room that's fully ADA compliant, and there's a hearing loop, and all the video and hearing assistance needs that any organization could have. And we encourage any organization out there to give us a call if they're interested in hosting a meeting or trying to work with us.
Yeah, that's terrific. And folks that are viewing, one of the misnomers about the not-for-profit sector is people think you're not allowed to make a profit, right? And for clarity, so everybody understands, not-for-profits, the 501c3 charitable organizations and others, the C4s and other things that are out there, the government has basically said, this is probably something, if government had the time, expertise, and resources, government should be doing. Mm-hmm. But we're going to allow the private sector to do it on behalf of government, a quasi type of agency, and we're going to allow them to be tax exempt. But they are allowed to make a profit. They're just not allowed to have their primary purpose be, to make a profit. And your statement that they have to be run like a business could never be more true than, today. One of the problems, I think, is, folks like you and folks like Randy and folks like Paul and like Neela, you're so focused on driving funds and fundraising that collaboration becomes lost, and that really puts a lot of pressure on on organizations. So now in your new role, right? What is the fundraising path looked like in the past, mm-hmm. and what is your fundraising hopes for the future?
Sure. So we have to raise close to $15 million a year.
15.
15.
That's unbelievable.
To break even. Every year. We do receive, and it looks like we're going to get a small increase from a federal grant, which we're very proud to have, for our service dog, side of the house. But right now we have a full cadre of events. We have a veterans walk, we have a golf tournament, we have runs across the country. We have a very robust individual fundraising program. I think one of the biggest changes we're going to implement as I get more tenured in the position is really embracing the corporate community. I'm trying to bring the corporate community into the fold. For years and years the organization's enjoyed a lot of grassroots donations, and I think probably more than ever it's important that we still maintain that and make sure that our grassroots donors know that how important they are to the organization and to the mission as we move forward. But I think it's equally as important, particularly with the tax law changes, that we embrace corporate giving and really try to break into some of those large-scale national organizations that would be interested in our space.
Yeah, and so from an awareness perspective, I'm a veteran. I proudly mm-hmm. served in the Marine Corps, and I think most folks, especially here on Long Island, would say, I would love to find a way to support our troops, even mm-hmm. if they weren't veterans, right? And as I, as you were and honestly, I didn't even know about the organization until mm-hmm. you joined it. I just mm-hmm. was ignorant towards it. But as I look at it, really, truly, the value proposition, I think, for supporting the organization, particularly from a business and a corporate perspective, is these men and women go overseas, okay, to defend us, to defend our way of life. They come home. There's problems with the healthcare system that they're injected into, and we know that that's been a problem. It's gotten better, but we know that that's been a problem. And I've witnessed it firsthand. I've seen veterans who have served in the Vietnam War, have served in Afghanistan, have served in Iraq. They come back, you know, and people who haven't experienced that can't understand what they're going through. So when you're saying, oh, a service dog will nudge them if they're having nightmares and everything else, you say, well, maybe a family member can do that. Right. I can tell you by my own experiences that family members don't know how to connect to that. They just don't, right? And so if you can get a service dog that can connect to that, I think that would take so much pressure off the family as well, who's trying to understand, how do I help this person who's experienced something I could never experience? Has that been feedback that you've gotten?
I got to tell you, you're right on the money, Joe. And you know,
and we never had that conversation before,
no,
right?
No, but your comments are right on point. And I can tell you, one of the first things I did when I joined the organization is I went through the class, you know, with the first service dog group, you know, that was coming to campus. And you know, there were 6 folks there, you know 5 men, 1 woman, and they were all a little anxious, all a little nervous about, you know, what the experience was going to hold, and you know, whether this was really going to work or not. And you know, every day, you know, they warmed up a little more. And fast forward to the day after they received their dogs, they were totally different people from a personality standpoint. Whether it was the hope, or whether it was, you know, that moment that they've been waiting, you know, so long for, to know that, you know, there's a possibility to regain, you know, what their life was like. But then fast forward, you know, to the end of the training and something we call Celebration Saturday, when they graduate. And you know, family members come up from across the country. You know, they get matched and they get introduced to the people who raise their puppies, you know, their dogs as puppies. It's a full circle moment. But the thing that hit me the most, and it really struck me, I had a wife of one of the veterans come over to me, had never met me before, just knew me as being introduced, you know, as the new president. She came over, gave me a huge hug, started crying on my shoulder, and said, "Thank you for giving me my husband back." And I think that's really, you know, the impact that we have here as an organization. We're providing, you know, a quality of life, you know, for these individuals who really were at their wits' end, and really some of them have given up. And you know, it's not only, you know, the individual, but it's the family that we're serving.
Yeah, I think that that's huge. And anybody who has a relationship with anybody who served in combat understands that, you know, and maybe it's true, maybe there is just a magical way for them to connect to these service dogs because there's this unconditional bond between them. I think it's really about holding families together more so than anything. I think that that's a critical thing. Young people, right? So every organization has to be cultivating supportive young people, right? 2025, the millennial generation is going to be occupying all of our workforces. So it seems like it might be a tad bit easier to attract young people when you have these beautiful puppies and dogs around, right? Than other issues. So what's been your experience? What's been the focus on getting young people engaged? You
know, the young people, you know, comprise a real component of our dog training, you know, operation. You know, we have, you know, a terrific trainer right now who's, you know, on the Today Show every day. You're really, you know, serving as part of the cast, you know, and you know, helping raise Sunny, you know, our dog on the Today Show. And I think she's a great model for all that we're doing. But we have an apprentice program where we're trying to really work hard with millennials, and they're some of the best trainers, you know, that we have in the organization. And you know, my philosophy has always been, you know, I had people, you know, who invested in me and took a chance on me very early, you know, in my career, whether it's, you know, with the town of Babylon or, you know, at the Red Cross, you know, and the president of the Red Cross. And you know, we're going to continue to focus, you know, on building our talent pool in the millennials. You know, the millennials that we have here now at, you know, Guide Dog and VetDogs, you know, really are second to none, and we're going to continue to invest in them.
Yeah, I hear so many business people want to, you know, dump all over the millennials. My experience has been they've been a phenomenal addition, particularly to our workforce. It's no different than any other talent pool. You have to sort through them and find good, talented folks. Right. So what's way young people can engage in your organization? Are there ways they can?
Absolutely. You know, either, you know, through volunteering, puppy raising. You know, we have colleges, you know, that are raising puppies. You know, we have companies, you know, that are, you know, helping to raise puppies. You volunteering. Ultimately, if you're looking, for a full-time job, we do have an apprentice program to get people into dog training and, get certified by, our accreditors, as well as, fundraising. And we have a speakers bureau where we have, some of our young folks go out and, talk about, what it means to raise a puppy and to watch the impact, that we're talking about that it has on families.
So just going back for a minute, you said that the waiting list and the demand for guide dogs is growing. Why do you think that is? Is it just because of a population explosion? Is there a metric of one dog per certain head count in the population is needed? How does that work?
Well, we're finding that people are losing vision or having their vision impaired by as they age, whether it's diabetes or other potential ailments. But just to clarify, so our list for guide dogs has been pretty steady over the last
It's the vet
few
dogs
years.
that are
It's the vet dog side that really is kind of exploding.
Yeah. So corporate responsibility, right? So you got about 15,000 business owners and business people that are going to be accessing this video and watching it at some point. So 5,000 to 6,000 organizations. Why you? Why your organization? Why is the guide dog and the America's Vet Dog the organization they should be taking on as a corporate sponsor?
Because if you look at the difference we're making in lives, we're giving people their husband or wife back. We're giving them a fair shot of living a normal life after having gone through such significant, in many cases, trauma, over in the battlefield. But also, the empowerment, on the guide dog side, for somebody who has not been able, to leave the home or not comfortably, go forward. We had a young man from Bethpage who was a football player, built like a He-Man, and ultimately was commuting from Bethpage to New York City every day over by Columbia University. So that's it's a pretty big commute.
Yeah.
And didn't have a guide dog, and he was resistant, for many reasons. But one day, coming home after working late, he walked into a telephone pole that had a nail exposed and cut his head open, and it really almost took out one of his eyes. As best I understand the story. And it was a low moment for him, and he came to our organization, was somewhat reluctant, but once again, you saw the joy and the empowerment once he was paired with his dog and learned how to work with it and handle the dog. And we changed lives, and you could see it instantaneously. And I'll be honest with you, I was surprised about how instantaneous it was. And watching some of these folks and their personalities transform, it's real, and it makes a huge impact. And not only that, we are rated very highly by all of the rating agencies we've spoke to before, and we're always going to do things ethically and morally right.
Yep. So folks, we were joined today with John Miller, President and CEO of the American Guide Dog Foundation and American Vet Dogs. Folks, you enjoy your liberty, you enjoy your freedom because vets are out there fighting for us. This is a really easy way to help support them and give back. John, real quick, give folks a way to get in contact with you so they can write their checks.
Sure. You can go to guidedog.org, guidedog.org, or vetdogs.org. And you can reach out, write your check, volunteer, or stop by our Smith campus and right there and say hi.
Great. And I encourage everyone to give to this great organization. Thanks so much, John, for taking on this undertaking.
Thanks for having us, Joe.
Absolutely.
I spent a lot of time trying to stay on duty, stay in the Army. I made a lot of bad decisions during that time to cover up issues such as PTSD, to do my best to hide the physical injuries that were going on so I could stay fit for duty. And ultimately realized that not only was I having all these physical and mental issues, I was cutting off the people in my life. I was withdrawing. My name is Peter Way, and I am a retired Army major from Augusta, Georgia.
Being honest, I was working full-time. We had 2 teenage children. I was just trying to hold our family together. I was trying to make things normal and positive, but it was very difficult. You were isolating yourself, you were grumpy, you were angry, you were reclusive. We were sort of in a coping phase of life.
I remember when I came into the airport, I was doped up, because that was the only way I could fly, was to, to get heavy amounts of something for anxiety. We got to campus and I walked through that front door, and it was just the weirdest feeling, because it was like this wave of, that's the atmosphere here. It's like this vibe that you can't put that into words. We always had an opportunity to tell our dog trainers things that we needed to experience before leaving. One of mine in particular was Walmart, and we made a field trip to Walmart one day, and I went into a Walmart for the first time during daylight hours. And because of those experiences, within a week of getting home, I took my daughter to the mall for the first time in years, took her shopping.
I just underestimated the impact until Pete got home, and I just saw how Pete had changed. I didn't have any preconceived notions. I just was relieved and happy to see this Pete. It's an amazing gift to all of us. I have my old husband back. Getting Rory was a turning point in our relationship, in our marriage, and definitely for Pete.
I had accepted certain things and had accepted it as this is just how it is, and I almost got comfortable in the misery of it. You don't realize how bad and how dark and how things really were until you can really truly step out of it, look back on it, and say that was bad. That was just a road that was never going to end well. Rory was that fork in the road. This way is not going to be good. This way's a new life. I have to thank VetDogs for that.
Currently, we provide a 2-week class experience for our applicants. Lots of our clients have busy work, school, family lives. So we really wanted to make sure that these people could come in and get the same kind of high quality program as they could receive in a 4-week program, but in a more compressed time. So typically in the guide dog industry, you might have 4 to 6 students per instructor. For us, it's 2 to 1. That gives us an ability to really customize each person's experience, so that at the end of it, we've been able to achieve their goals that they gave us at the beginning when they embarked on the journey. With a 2 to 1 ratio, you're actually observing more interactions between each client and each dog on a daily basis, which means you can identify challenges that come up, you can address them more quickly than you ever could in a much longer program. When students arrive, and of course we train clients from all around the United States and Canada, and when they arrive and they come in from one of the airports in the New York metro area, they come into our gorgeous campus where we're able to fulfill all their needs while they're with us for the 2 weeks of the training with their guide dog. We want it to be a home away from home. We have private rooms, we have private baths for each of our students, we have Wi-Fi connectivity, we have a chef that provides amazing meals and can accommodate any dietary restriction that somebody might have. The first day is getting to know their classmates and everybody kind of talking a little bit about their background and what they're hoping to achieve here during their training. So the first day is spent orienting to the building, kind of learning the schedule, learning what the next 2 weeks is going to look like. And then that second afternoon that they've arrived, they get matched with their dog. From that point, the person is going to be with their dog 24/7. The dog stays with them, sleeps with them. Every need that needs to be attended to for the dog is taken care of by the client for the next 2 weeks. At that point then, what we're focused on is building fundamentals. We have a wide range of clients that we provide service for, from people who live in rural areas to people who might live in the middle of Manhattan or other large urban areas. So in the second week, we're able to customize with our 2 to 1 ratio where everybody is going. So they can get a mix and match of whatever they want. They can get hiking trails, they can get pathways, they can get city work, they can get rural work, sidewalkless areas, they can go into the city and experience subway and other urban travel. So from a standpoint of where we're located in the New York metro area on Long Island, we can satisfy any need that they possibly would have in that 2-week period. One of the things that makes us unique is that we have full-time field support that can provide graduate support when they have issues, whether that be an issue that they're having around how their dog is working, whether it be an accessibility issue, whatever it might be, we have field support that is out in their zone, ready to handle their problem.